On April 16th, 2006, I lost my cousin. Not only was he my cousin, but he also was my best friend. Lost him to gun violence. And I believe I was depressed about 2 months. And I just couldn't believe what happened. So I remember at the gravesite, pastor came to me and said, "What are you going to do about this?" And he wasn't talking about retaliation. He was talking about making an impact in the community, being a mentor towards the youth, something like my cousin was, and not just letting his death be in vain. We did everything together. He was only 6 months older than me. We even went to Boy Scouts together and had a good time and learned some things from there. And, just would always spend the night over each other's house, go on trips. And he was just not only my cousin, but my best friend. So when he died, when his death came, it really hit me hard. It was just I was in like a grave state, just a depressed state of mind. I just didn't know how to shake it off because, here's someone who had an influence in my life, who made an impact on my life, and, was just somebody who I can always talk to, somebody who had my back. I didn't have to worry about anything. He always would motivate me. He was at every one of my graduations, my high school graduation, when I graduated with my associate degree, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, my high school graduation, and when I graduated with my master's degree. And he'd always push me to finish school. And there were times where I just felt like giving up. I didn't want to do college anymore. I struggled in high school and barely passed high school. And so, here I am trying to do college and just felt like I couldn't do it academically. But he would always say, "Hey, college is for those that, can weed people out." And he said, "You can do it. You are one of those guys that can, endure and get through this and get your college degree." And before I got to college, people would tell me that, once you get to college, you're going to become poor. And I didn't understand what they were talking about. But when I became a college student, I realized what they were talking about because, I couldn't always have a full-time job because I was taking classes. And so I would always be working a part-time job just to meet, my needs and to pay certain bills. But I didn't have a lot of money because I was working part-time. And the other time I had to focus on my academic studies for college. And there were a few times where I couldn't pay my rent. And I would reach out to him and he had no problem helping me out with my rent, and he would say, "Pay me back when you can." And there was one time where I didn't even pay him back. And he never, got on me about it. He never harped on me about it. And so he was just one of those dudes that you can depend on, just always there for me. And so when he passed away, I had to do something. I just couldn't just have a t-shirt that said "Rest in Peace" or just, throw his name up on social media every year of the death of his death. So I was like, you know what? I got to do something different. So the thing that I did different was I started an outreach ministry called SOS. And SOS stands for Salvation of Streets. And so with this organization, this nonprofit organization, I reached out to the community. I reached out to the youth in the community. And I would go on speaking engagement tours. I spoke at a juvenile home, the local jail. I would do activities for the youth. I would take them to, a Tigers game, Detroit Pistons game, and this all was paid for. They didn't have to pay for anything. I would hold basketball tournaments. I would take them rock climbing, bowling, you name it. And they really had a good time. And I really the organization really made an impact on these kids' lives. And, I even did a memorial candlelight visual, in memoriam of my cousin Ben. And this garnered some media attention. And so we were still trying to find who killed my cousin. And so I knew that if I would just, have SOS heighten the awareness of gun violence, this will bring more attention to his case. And so it's been some years, but I felt like the pressure to find the killer made everybody aware of gun violence and made everybody a little bit more active into finding the killer of my cousin Ben. In 2021, the police had identified who killed my cousin, and they arrested him and charged him. And so the family, myself and the family, are waiting for a trial to happen. And I'm just grateful that there's some closure. And when you start being active, and when you just say, you know what, I'm not going to let his death be in vain, when you don't give up, when you just keep going, and when you're accomplishing a goal and you're consistent with it, you're going to end up with some results. And so we're happy, we're celebrating. And I knew that if I can just do something. So when that pastor spoke in my ear and said, what are you going to do? Oh, I had to comply. I had to adhere to what he was saying. And so when I started SOS, I said, I'm going to make sure that his death is not in vain, and that at some point they're going to find this killer. Now, it took 15 years to find the killer, but I'm grateful. And I'm grateful for, in those 15 years, the impact that SOS has made on the community, and always doing it in memory of my cousin Ben Holmes. And so I'm grateful for just everything that had just, came to pass. When John Walsh's son was murdered, he started America's Most Wanted. When Candy Lightner's daughter was killed in a car accident, she started MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And when my cousin Ben was killed, I started SOS, Salvation of Streets. And I got some results. Rest in peace, Ben.